All right. Welcome back to KMJ, the Appleton program. You just heard one of our listeners bragging effusively about reporter Lois Henry, who apparently broke this story way back when, and she took it upon herself to give us a call right now, and I appreciate that. Hi, Lois.
Hi, Ray. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing well.
You know I'm from Fresno, and we know each other.
I understand that. Immediately when he said the name, I'm like, whoa, I know this person. So
yeah, our mutual friend is Kathleen Jackson.
That's very cool.
Remember?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I know.
Right.
I know who you is, dear. I know who you is. So anyway.
So I'm a homegirl, so there.
You done good. Now, apparently, you did have a hand in breaking this story, correct?
I wouldn't say that I broke it. Actually, Chris Reed, who's an editorial writer and blogger for the UT, the San Diego Union Tribune, he really broke the story. Mm-hmm. He was the first one who came out with it. And I followed up not only sort of on the Hein Tran thing and how he lied about his credentials, but I read both reports. I know this is going to sound really boring and horrible, but I actually read both his draft report and his final report. I read all of the comments from all of the different scientists and people who commented on the reports, and I looked up and read all of the studies that Tran used in that report to try and understand, basically because someone was telling me that they didn't think that these things were correct and that, pollution doesn't kill these thousands of people, and I was basically doing that to prove my friend wrong. And I came away thinking, even before I knew Tran, had lied on his credentials, that the science does not back up what they're saying about PM 2.5 and its effect on our health. And I can get into that more if you want me to, but it gets a little bit sort of detailed. But if you go back and you read all that stuff and you read what Tran did, because he dismissed studies that showed there was no effect or very little effect in California particularly of PM 2.5 on premature death. He just dismissed those. And he dismissed them for various reasons. Like in the draft report, he would dismiss one study for some reason he didn't think it was a good enough study, and then someone in the comments would say, no, that's not true. That study doesn't even say that. You're mixing that up. So in the final report, he would come back and go, well, I'm dismissing it for completely different reasons. I mean, it was very clear to me that he was going through the motions in order to come to a predetermined conclusion.
I'll be darned.
I mean, if you really go through and you research this, and it took me weeks to read it and understand it. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a science writer. I write about local issues and politics and people and different things here. So I really had to comb through and, practically make myself a glossary to understand all these scientific terms and everything. But I thought it was important to understand, what exactly is going on in this report. Anyway, and then to come to find out that he had lied about his credentials and that, of course, moving forward, that all these people knew about it prior to the vote but didn't. I mean, if they're so sure that this is all the best thing for everybody, why not make it open and transparent? But they didn't. They hid the information and then had the vote and sort of, kept, telling everybody like me and Chris Reed, oh, don't mind that man behind the curtain. And so, to me, this is just government gone awry, absolutely gone awry. And anyway, so that's kind of how I got onto it. And I know the fellow said that Mary Nichols had written, a letter to us, which she did, and I have it on my blog, and everybody can read it if they want. I actually answered her, all of her allegations and everything, and it's not that I lost steam on it. It's just that I have so much to cover. There's like so much stuff going on, from, bad government to locally to statewide to...
Yeah, there's a lot going on now. I mean,
it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's so sad right now that journalism is, in such a terrible state because there needs to be so many more people watching what's going on. I mean, it's just... Anyway, so that's kind of where I got to all this information.
So when this woman from CARB got a hold of you, did she threaten you mildly or did she challenge you on your information? I mean, how much getting down did she do with you, Lois?
Well, first of all, she said, because I had written about, by the way, this guy lied about his credentials. I was really into the science, and then I was like, well, by the way, this guy, is a complete fraud. What the heck is that about? So she said, that's just a red herring, and Lois Henry's just throwing that out. Doesn't mean anything. Don't pay attention to it, And she said he was just merely a compiler of studies, which is not true. He used a lot of judgment, as I just mentioned, into, what things to put in and what to keep out. And then she said, that I was basically a pollution, quote, denier. And I hate that term. I just hate it when people say that. I've had so many environmentalists, and I consider myself an environmentalist, by the way. I've always been very, green conscious. I don't.
Yeah, we all do to a degree, but it's when the extremists on the other side use it as a political battering ram, then you've got to get off the train and say, wait a minute, exactly as you did.
Right. I mean, you have to look at it and be like, not just, oh gosh, it's going to harm us economically, because sometimes things are hard to take economically, but you need to do it, to make sure people aren't dropping off in droves. But it's not just that; it's that it's not happening. This is not. I do not believe that the people are being knocked off, by the thousands because of PM 2.5, and I don't believe the science proves it. Anyway, the other thing that I was going to get to is the term denier. And I've been called this, even John Balms, who's the CARB board member, who's a very accessible guy. He always answers my questions. I like him. He's a nice guy. But he called me a pollution denier, and I was like, I write people back all the time, and I say, please stop using that, because we all know what that means. To call someone a denier is basically to harken back to saying you're a Holocaust denier, meaning you're, either a terrible racist or you're crazy.
Yeah.
That's where that term really comes from. So when you start calling people that, instead of just saying, well, we're going to have a disagreement, or let's talk about the science, or let's really, engage in a conversation about whether this is correct or not and whether these numbers are really correct, to just heap that onto somebody, I think, is completely unfair, and just try. It's just an attempt to shut down conversation, which I think is the wrong way to approach things.
How does this make you feel now that finally the guy's been demoted? Tran, he should be relieved of all of his duties, and ultimately
that'll.
He should have been
fired,
huh?
And he wasn't demoted. He took a voluntary demotion.
Yeah.
He did take a 60-day pay suspension, I think, or suspension of some sort. But we're still paying his pension.
Oh, I know.
He's getting his pension. He's still getting his benefits.
There should be more that there should be more that should happen to him.
Yeah.
But to get to my point, that now this regulation has been put on the back burner, and
not yet.
Well, they're yakking about it. It should be.
Yeah.
And
I'm sorry, John Balms and Mary Nichols have both said that they are not interested in suspending the regulation. They wanted. John Balms has said he wants to talk about the economics of the rule and how it affects people economically, but he is not inclined to suspend the regulation because of what Tran did, because he firmly believes in the science. His comment and Mary Nichols' comment to me were that they voted for this regulation regardless of Tran's report because they, quote, knew the science behind the information.
Oh, right, yeah.
And it's like, well, then why go through the exercise? My last story was, why have a report? Was this just some sort of farce to keep the public, lulled into thinking we have a voice in our governance?
Well, you said you were very busy, but are you going to stay on this now?
Oh, well, yeah, as much as I can. I mean, I write a general kind of a column, so I don't know if all my readers are interested in reading this every time I come out with a column, but as much as I can, yeah, as soon as there's any kind of new twist or turn in it, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, how do people find you? Because we've been asked over and over again, when you come up with something else, where do they find you on the Internet?
Well, okay, you go to Bakersfield.com. This is kind of hard because my blog is called No Holds Barred.
Yeah.
So you go to Bakersfield.com, and there's like a tab at the top that says people, something to say people, entertainment, images. And when you click on the people tab, you'll see it says staff blogs, and that's where I always am.
Okay.
And my blog is called No Holds Barred, and so you can always kind of check that out. Yeah, that's how you do it. We used to have a couple of different ways to do it, but we've lost a lot of people here, and so we can't quite keep up on our internet the way that we would like to. Anyway, so it's No Holds Barred,
yeah.
Or you can go to LoisHenryArchive.com.
Very good.
I try and post everything there as well, and you can always email me lhenry@bakersfield.com. And Chris Reed is another one. He's really been keeping after it, and now I see that Capital Weekly and Sacramento Bee and the Fresno Bee have gotten onto the story. So I'm wondering if there'll be some more coverage.
Well, Lois, I'm out of time. I got to let you go, but small world. Good talking to you again.
All right.
Continued
Thanks a lot, Ray.
Continued good work. Keep on it.
Okay, thanks.
All right, take care. Bye-bye. Come to find out, I've known her for a long time. How about that? It's a small world.